Greetings and salutations, Perfect Reject WolfSnake Games. I'm here to bring you guys a hands-on review for another console that's a little older than modern, and today we're taking a look at the PlayStation 2. Now, this console was released in October 26th of 2000, and the first thing you'll notice right off the bat is the nice blue logo right here, the PlayStation 2 logo, and underneath that is actually etched in PlayStation 2. Across the top of it, you'll see all the different things that are compatible with the console, so overall, you know, pretty neat on top. Across the front, everything fits really nicely with the design for the most part. Sony actually has their logo embedded in the front right here. You have your injection button, which actually would pull out a disc tray if I had it powered on, but I don't, so. And then you have your reset button, not a power button. Right here you actually have this little piece that switches orientation depending on how you want to sit the console, so that was kind of neat. And like I said, everything fits really nicely with the design over on this hand. Your memory card ports look like part of the design. If it didn't have the words memory card port on it, you probably wouldn't even know they were there. Then your two controller ports. Now closer down to the bottom, you actually have two USB ports and an S400 port. If anybody knows what that's for, please leave it in the comments. I'm always interested to find out. Across here you actually have a cooling vent. Top, well, side, other side, and the bottom ultimately had pretty much nothing other than a warning because of the power supply inside of it, and just general designs and rubber pieces so you could set it up. On the back of the console though, you actually had a power switch, much like a computer has. Because of the power supply being inside of the console, they actually had a switch for the power. You actually only had a wire. There was no box on the wire or anything, it was just plug it, there you go. You had your video out, your both digital and AV, and then you have your cooling port here, which is a little dusty. Like I said, just got the console, so I need to actually clean it. Your sticker that gives you all the information, what model, what region it's for, so on and so forth. That sounded like I broke it, but I was popping open the expansion port. Now the expansion port, the only thing I know of that was released in 2002 as an answer for Xbox Live was the network adapters, so that's pretty interesting right there. They actually did have a couple of games online with the PlayStation 2 late in its life. Well, not late in its life, it was still early, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So they did try to answer what Xbox was doing with Xbox Live. Now moving on to the PlayStation 2 Slim, it's pretty much the same console in most ways, but there are some major differences. Because the PlayStation 2 had so many reliability issues, they went and fixed it all with this. I'll go over them as I meet them, so without further ado, let's go ahead. Again, it still has the matte textured finish across, and then it has this nice sleek design here. PlayStation 2 etched into it, and the words PlayStation 2 etched into it underneath. So overall, pretty much the same exact thing. Compatibility information right here, Sony etched up here. There's no Sony logo across the front, but it's not that big of a deal. You have a reset button and your power button all in one. Same little logo that orients depending on how you want it, and an eject button. They had a flip top. That's where they actually fixed two of the problems that were wrong with the original PlayStation. There was a little bit of an error with the disc reader where it wouldn't read certain discs after it wore down a little bit, and ultimately the disc drive, as it ejected out, the mechanics would wear down and eventually it would stop working. So now they have this nice little flip top, so you don't have to worry about those anymore. And they also replaced the disc reader with something else. On the other side of the console, you'll notice it does have not quite as good with the design, but it is still there. You know, it still has the same design and pretty much tries to streamline with it. And you have your two memory card ports and your two controller ports. You also have your two USB ports and a smaller cooling vent right here, because now that you don't have the power supply in there, you don't have as much to cool down. The infrared reader right here, which replaces the S400 port, which I don't know what the infrared is for either. Again, leave it in the comments if you do. Top, both sides, or well, bottom and both sides, pretty much the same thing, except for the bottom on this one actually has your information sticker there instead. On the back of the console, you have a completely different power port, and the reason for it is because you don't have the power supply in the console anymore. It actually does have the box on the wire, which is another reliability issue fix, because the power supply being inside the console caused overheating issues and so on, so this is their little fix for it. You have your digital and your analog video out, and instead of having a network adapter or an expansion port, they actually had the network adapters, broadband adapters and whatnot built into it, so you could just plug it right into the internet and play it. So that was another beneficial thing about this one. Pretty much I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there. Anybody who's looking for a PlayStation 2 to play some games on, get the Slim. It's just a lot more reliable in so many ways, on top of the fact that it doesn't take up as much room and doesn't get near as hot. So there's several reasons right there. Now, you have your memory card, 8 megabyte. I think they came out with a 16 and a 32 megabyte, and your controller. Now, I don't have too much to say about the controller other than, you know, personal things, because it really is what I consider the epitome of modern day controlling. It does have your triangle, your X, your square, and your circle, which to me, I don't really like that because it confuses me when I move from console to console. Especially when something on screen is telling you to hit the X button, and you're like, oh, okay, X. No, that's square. Either way, it was the first controller, as far as I can tell, that had vibrating functions in it that wasn't third party, had 2 joysticks, and had analog buttons which were pressure sensitive. So those are 3 things that PlayStation kind of put out there and really kind of worked on, I guess. So you have your, like I said, you have your joysticks. They're really nice joysticks. There's not much problem with them. They have nice rubber grips on them. Your L1, R1 are within easy reach. L2, R2, all that within easy reach. Has a nice kind of grip to it. It's not my favorite. It's too small for me, and I feel like it's a little too wide and not thick enough, I guess. So it is what it is. Your start, select button, analog button, which the analog button, I'm still not entirely sure what that does other than cut off joysticks with certain games. So overall, like I said, pretty much the epitome of modern gaming controller, you know, standard. I don't really have much else to say about it. But just to talk a little bit about the history of the PlayStation 2, I don't really have too much that I could dig up, but I did also cover 2 versions of the console in this video, so hopefully this will keep it around the same time as my other ones. One of the things that it was pretty much the answer in the 6th generation war against the Dreamcast, before the Xbox was announced, and I think right before the GameCube was announced. So it was pretty much, like I said, their answer, and it did a good job. It done what it needed to do, and it outsold the Dreamcast. Unfortunately, too well, as we all know. Rest in peace. But either way, it worked out for them. There were 3 things, namely, that really were marketing ploys for them. Well, one of them really a ploy, the other one kind of a gimmick, and then the last one actually something that everybody was looking forward to for good reason, IMO. However, the ploy was the DVD. Everybody knew it was going to have the DVD compatibility. That was the biggest thing that everybody really remembered about the thing, and that's one of the things that helped it really get up there in sales. However, they also announced the Motion Engine CPU, which to me was like the Sega Genesis blast processing, which it was not so much an actually new thing that they had created, so much as another name for something that was out there that they got a hold of. Blast processing was basically a fancy way of saying we have a faster processor. A motion engine CPU is a fancy way of saying we can do better graphics and show emotion on our characters. So, again, ploy and a gimmick. And then the last one, now this was something, it was kind of unheard of at the time, except for with handhelds. Backwards compatibility. Your regular NES could not play, or your Super NES could not play your regular NES games. So, again, not that big of a deal. Sega Saturn couldn't play your Genesis games. Not that big of a deal. And, I mean, all these consoles never had that. So, PlayStation, you know, Sony came out and they actually introduced that. And it kind of became something that people expected from gaming consoles. And it still hasn't been quite as frequent as it seems like it should be. And it even seems to be falling out, which is unfortunate, especially considering Sony started it and now they're leaving it behind. I really hope that they go back on that, because that would be one of the very few reasons that I would be more than willing to get a PlayStation 4 before its price drops very significantly. Yeah, but anyway, another interesting thing is, I didn't mention that the PlayStation 2 Slim actually was released in November 4 of 2004. But that's when it was released. As far as I can tell, it was released in Europe and Japan on that exact date. All I could find in North America is November 2004. So I'm assuming it was the same date or very close to it. But the really interesting thing is that this console actually survived until just the beginning of this year. On January 4th of 2013, this console was discontinued. They no longer they stopped making more models and whatnot. So this was the longest standing console in history of gaming. No console had a lifespan 12 years long that was still being supported by game developers and ultimately the company who made the console. Sega Dreamcast still gets the love from, you know, third-party developers, from indie developers and stuff, but they don't get like hard, you know, the gaming companies that really have the money to invest in this stuff. They don't have them supporting it anymore. And this console, up until this year, had that. So, and that was only a couple of months, I think, before the PlayStation 4 was announced. So that is a phenomenal thing. Just to think that the PlayStation 3 is at the end of its life, and now the PlayStation 2 is finally dead because the PlayStation 4 is announced. It's just a phenomenal thought altogether. So overall, that's pretty much all I've got to say about the PlayStation 2. I'm sorry if I missed any information. If you guys have anything else to share, leave it in the comments and let me know. I'm always willing to find out anything new about these consoles. I know I didn't say it in my last two videos for the GameCube and the Dreamcast, but again, if you have anything in the, about those that I don't know, leave it in the comments at those videos and just let me know. So, I hope you liked this video. If you did, comment, rate, like, subscribe. If you like it, give it a lick. And this is Perfect Reject, signing out.